Hello gamers, and welcome back to another episode of Solospelunking. So I'm back from my vacation. I took a little break and now I'm back with new content. And this will be another Solospelunking table talk episode, which means no gameplay. Table talk is my format where I ramble on about all things solo gaming, solo RPG gaming, and share my unlimited wisdom with you. Of course, that was just a joke, but a little disclaimer. Everything I say and everything I talk about in this video only, of course, reflects my own opinion and my own experiences and my own conclusions that I drew from my own experiences as a solo gamer. So you might have completely different points of views and opinions, and that is totally fine. I just want to share you my opinions. I want to share my opinion and my point of view. And the topic I want to talk about today is documenting your solo gaming sessions, documenting your solo RPG sessions. And I want to talk about today, first of all, about do you actually need to document a solo RPG session or should you? And if you need or should document solo RPG sessions, I want to talk about why that might be the case. And then I want to talk about how you might document a solo RPG session. And I will show you different ways and methods that you can use. And I will go into the pros and cons of all of these methods. And then I will finally give you a little summary and conclusion. So, this is what we want to talk about today, or what I want to talk about today. So first, I want to address the matter of, do you actually should document a solo RPG session, or do you really need to document a solo RPG session? And here, my answer is a clear and definite resounding yes, and I will tell you why. But, of course, there's also a little caveat here. So, the one instance I can think of that you might not really need to document or record a solo RPG session is if your play style involves playing constantly one-shots or pre-published adventures. So if you don't really care about having one character go through a longer campaign with interlocking adventures, but maybe you just have one character and you just want to take him or her through different adventures and you don't really care. So let's say, for example, you play in a Forgotten Realms Dungeons and Dragons setting and you have your character, and so during one session you play an adventure taking place in, let's say, Flan, and the next adventure will be taking place in Neverwinter, and those adventures are completely separate from each other, and you don't really care about some coherent, consistent story. You just want to experience those pre-published adventures and want to take one character through pre-published adventures or a pre-published campaign where all the locations and NPCs are already detailed in the product. That is one instance I can think of where you don't really need to document your solo RPG sessions, but you would still probably need to make some notes, at least to record at which point you left off for the session, because you probably won't play through the whole thing in one go. So you still need to at least jot down what you did and where you want to go next. But all the other information regarding NPCs, locations, etc. is in the pre-published module or books. So this is the instance that I can think of that you don't really need to document or record your sessions. In all other instances, I think you should document your sessions. And why is that? And this brings me to the second point I want to address in this video. Well, unless you are Data or a Vulcan and you have a memory that never fails you, and you want to play like through a consistent campaign, or you play like sandbox style with procedurally generated content, you should document, of course, the NPCs that you meet, the locations that you learned about, the locations that you might have explored, jot down some details about taverns you have visited, etc. Because this creates consistency and what I like to call permanency. It basically solidifies facts about the game world and gives your actions meaning by cementing them within the game world by recording them. And it helps you to build a world and to introduce recurring characters and locations that you can then later interact with again, or that you can build your story or adventure around. And so, because if you don't document or record or any of these things, and you're not Data and don't have a perfect memory, chances are if you come back to your game, maybe after a break of 2 or 3 days, or maybe even after a week, you probably don't remember how this NPC looked, or who you actually talked to, or which NPCs you have met in your adventures so far. So this is one reason why, in my opinion, you should document or record your session in some way, because, like I said, it creates consistency and permanency and gives your actions meaning. But there's another aspect for me that is important. And this relates to the difference between solo gaming and group gaming. So if you're playing in a group, probably you only jot down your character information. The GM keeps track of locations you have visited and maybe quests you got, and he knows, or she knows, the world he or she created, and has all those notes, and it is his or her responsibility to create this consistent world, and you interact with the game world by talking to your fellow players and by describing your actions to the GM. So this is actually the game loop in a group game. You describe an action to the GM or to a fellow player, they react, describe the reactions of the world, maybe you need to roll some checks, maybe you don't, and then it starts over again and you react to the new information you have gathered or to the circumstances that have changed because of your actions. So in a solo game, you don't really have this interaction aspect. So for me, this documenting and recording a game session is my way of actually interacting with the world. It substitutes the interaction between the player characters and the interaction with the GM. So recording or journaling or somehow documenting my actions, and then also documenting the results of checks or the results of my actions that might be determined by asking an oracle or by the checks, is my way of gaming, of solo gaming, of interacting with the world. And this is, for me, the basically the most important reason to record or journal or somehow document your session, because it also keeps me focused, keeps my thoughts focused in the game, in the world, in the events, in the happenings, and and gives my action meaning in a way that if I have written it down in my journal or recorded some other way, it actually happened. It is solidified. It has meaning. So now we have talked about if you actually should journal and why you should journal, or not journal, but somehow document and record your session. The way you can do this, I will go into now. So, what are different methods that you can use to journal, to document, to record your session, and what are the pros and cons and benefits of these different methods? And I have arranged them in the order of, in my opinion, the effort needed to use these methods. And in my opinion, the most effortless, shortest form, like the bare minimum of recording or documenting a solo session, is by just using short lists that detail NPCs, locations, and threats, and basic gameplay information. So what I got here, this is from Mythic Game Master Emulator 2nd edition, and they have all handy lists and sheets in the back of the document. So here we have an adventure journal and an adventure list. And in my opinion, something like this would be the shortest form of actually recording or documenting your session. So Mythic uses a very set structure of scenes and changing scenes and like a game loop of playing through an adventure that you generate on your own. So here you could like write down a short summary about the scene that includes maybe a little description, and basically here you have like the bare minimum, like the characters that you have encountered, threats like possible quests or plot points or goals your character has that are unresolved that you want to take care of, like I said, who you met. And in the scene summary you could summarize basic information about where you were, what you did, what the location looked like. So in my opinion, this is like the shortest form of documenting, recording a session, and the bare minimum. And you don't even need like this elaborate form that I have printed out. You could just use normal sheets of paper and just put down, I don't know, characters, locations, threats, and then just do bullet points. So that would be the first method, just using short lists to record basic bare bones gameplay information. And I will go into the pros and cons in the next part of this video. First, I want to go through the things that I've set up here. So the second method you can use to record or document a session is using a digital voice recorder. So this is a digital voice recorder that I have gotten quite a while ago. It served me well. And I've used it a couple of times. I'm not using it anymore. I will tell you why in the next part of this video. But that would be also a very quick and effortless method to record or document a solo session. So method number 3 would be the good old classic analog journal that I have showcased in this video, or this method I've not showcased in this video, but I've showcased in this channel, how and why I journal and how I set up my journals. So that would be another viable method. Then we have, so this is a very old laptop, you can see, because it is pretty big and heavy. It even has a disk drive. Of course, you can not only document your session in an analog journal, but also, of course, using a laptop, a notebook, or a PC to document or record your session in a word processing document. And the last method is what I'm doing right now. You can, of course, record solo sessions on video, either just for you or maybe to share with an audience. And that would be, of course, the method that probably takes the most effort and setup times. So these are, in my opinion, the different methods you could use if you decide to, of course, document or record your sessions at all. So now I want to go into the pros and cons of each of these methods. And every method has, of course, merits and benefits, but also downsides, and there probably is not the perfect method for everybody. So we will start, of course, with the first method I have talked about here, and this is just using short lists to record the bare minimum of gameplay information. So most of the actual gameplay, the interaction with the game world, would take place in your head in a theater of mind style, and you just document what you need to refresh your memory when you pick up the game at a later time. So of course, the most obvious pro or benefit is it is a very quick method. It is very quick. You basically play in your head, which can be very fast. You just jot down basic information. So it means also it is very quick, but it can also be done anywhere. So let's say you want to play on a business trip. You have a 10-hour flight to some place, and you're sitting in the plane, and you got 10 hours to kill. So maybe you want to use 2 or 3 of these hours to get some solo gaming in. So you can basically, if you have like a rule set on your phone, or a dice roller app on your phone, you just need a pen, and you can basically play anywhere, anytime, because you're not talking out loud. You don't need a big place. Like, for example, if you set up a laptop, you need some more space. Maybe you need a power socket. So this is very quick, can be done anywhere, anytime. You don't need to be undisturbed, and you can reference the most important information. So what is, in my opinion, the downside of using this method? Well, the downside for me is mostly the danger of distraction or losing concentration when you just play in your head theater of mind. And like I said, this is just my experience, my opinion, but when I tried first, when I started solo role playing, I tried out different methods, and I tried basically playing it all out in my head without really documenting my actions and the game world. And I quickly realized that this is not for me, because my thoughts, they kept wandering off. So if you you look around, if you're like in a plane and you play in your head, and then someone walks by, or there's the stewardess or something, I don't know. I found that I very quickly get distracted and lose track and concentration of the actual game, and I always have to re-enter and re-establish this mindset of gaming. So this danger of distraction also goes hand in hand for me with the lack of immersion. And because you're limited by space and you just record basic information, you're also limited to reference the basic information of events that have happened. And there's only basic information available for you to use. So this is a method that I have found is not really for me. Then we have the digital voice recorder. So what are the benefits? Well, of course, it is very quick, because talking is a lot faster than writing usually. And it can be very detailed and very immersive, because you by talking out loud, it for me it helps me to stay focused if I don't have it all in my head, but talk it out loud into the machine. And when I used this method, I tended to use very descriptive descriptions and go into a lot of detail, and it was actually very immersive. And the benefit also is it does not feel weird if you sit in an empty room and talk to yourself or talk out loud, because you're actually talking into the machine, the device. So the pure act of holding this thing in my hand and talking into it, recording, I don't know, it created a feeling of not sitting there just talking to myself in a strange way, but to actually interact with the game world by recording this information. So it is quick, you can be very detailed and immersive, and depending on how you feel, it can help get rid of this feeling of being weird talking to yourself. But what are the downsides? Well, obviously, you need to be undisturbed. So this is not really something for gaming on the go, at least not if you're in a train or in a plane and you have other people around you that hear you talk into this machine. So this is something you should do while you're undisturbed. And for me, though, the main drawback and the main reason why I stopped using this method of recording my sessions is that you can't quickly go back to reference information. So usually, even if I use a voice recorder, I still need to keep even a bare minimum of written record. Like, for example, one of these lists where I at least record NPCs that I have met, their description, maybe locations that I have visited. Because if you don't do this, if you want to reference information, you have to find the right place in the recording. You have to go back into the recording. You have to listen to different passages again to maybe find the information that you need and that you are looking for. So even though you use a voice recorder, you would still need, in my opinion, to keep some form of written record. And this inability to quickly recap a session, to reference past information, for me was the main reason I stopped using this method. Of course, now we have more modern tools available. So what you could do is, of course, you could run your recording through a text-to-speech software to create a written record afterwards. It doesn't have to be fancy, and just save it in a cloud or on your hard drive. So then you can recap the session quickly by going through the document that was created by the machine. But for me, this is too much of a hassle. So I'm not using this method anymore. I experimented with it. Like I said, it is a process. Everyone has to find their own way of recording, documenting their sessions, of their way to play. But that would be one possibility. All right, then we have the analog journals. And for those of you following this channel, you know that this is the method that I use. This is one of the two methods I use. And I use this method for my private games and when I don't play off camera. And yeah, this is my go-to method of actually solo playing. Why? So what are the benefits of this method? Well, just like with keeping short lists, it can be done anywhere, anytime, because you don't really need to be undisturbed. Because like if you're on a plane or train, for an outsider, you're just writing stuff in a journal, so you don't need to talk out loud. You don't need a lot of setup space, like a power outlet for, let's say, for a laptop. And you can have everything you need in this journal. So I've talked about this in the past. So usually I got some important tables and oracles, point crawl travel charts in the front or back of the journal. I got character cards, character sheets, maps in the journal. And sometimes if the journal has like a little back pocket, you can store it there. So basically with a journal and a phone app with a dice roller and a pen, this is all you need to play anywhere, anytime. So no setup required. And another big advantage is the information can easily be referenced, especially if you use little things like you underline certain sections or mark them with an X, or reference. If you have a journal with page numbers, you can reference page numbers. Let's say you meet a bounty hunter that you've encountered before in a Star Wars game. You could put in parentheses the page number where you first encountered the bounty hunter. So this information is easily referenced. And you can be as elaborate or as rudimentary as you like with your descriptions. So, actually this sounds like a lot of benefits. What are the drawbacks of this method? Well, the drawback is, of course, it can be tiring. So depending on how well versed you are with writing by hand, it can be tiring, and it is, of course, a slower form of gaming, because usually you think faster than you write, and it could feel that the act of actually having to write the scene that you've imagined in your head down into this journal slows down your gameplay. So it is slow, it is tiring, or can be tiring. For me, these drawbacks are not, or they don't weigh heavily enough to stop using this method, because if I play for myself and I get tired, I just take a couple of minutes break. And being slow, well, I'm not on a race, I'm not on a clock. I'm doing this for fun, for stress relief, for relaxation, and this is the good thing. Playing solo, you can play at your own pace. So I am fond of this method. This is the method I use in my private games off camera. This is also what I use when I play on camera to jot down the basic information that I need to reference later. And it took me a while, actually. It was a journey for me to find my perfect style. Like I said, I experimented with all the things I'm showing you here. I experimented with them, and now I have found my way. So don't be discouraged if you try out different methods and it doesn't work the way you want it to work, or the way you want it to feel. It doesn't feel the way you want it to feel. Just try a different method. It is just you. There's no wrong way to play, and you don't have to appease to anyone else but yourself. All right, next method is, of course, then the laptop or PC, or in general, the digital way of documenting a session. Well, another benefit is with laptop, or the benefits with laptops today, usually, of course, this can also be done anywhere. You don't need to be undisturbed. You can type anywhere if you have a small laptop. You can easily reference information, even easier, because you could use like search functions. You can be as elaborate and detailed as you like. Basically the same with an analog journal. You basically have the same benefits as an analog journal. You have the added benefit of that you can easily insert maps or images or access images if you're online, and make your record even more vivid, even more visually appealing, if you like, by inserting NPC portraits or maps into the document. So also very, very neat things you can do if you go the digital route. Very convenient. So what are the cons? Well, the first con is obviously you need a little more space than just using a journal, but not a lot. Depending on how long you want to play, you need some sort of power outlet or power source. You have like cable management. But for me, there are two drawbacks that are more severe. The first one is, of course, the danger of distraction by being online. So if you play and you're online and you have like different tabs open, like for example for monsters, for images, maps, whatever, I see the danger of getting too distracted by the other things and focusing too much on making your record like visually appealing, inserting maps. So you're constantly getting out of this flow of gaming by maybe looking for additional information, looking stuff up because it's at your fingertips and you want it all to be perfect. So, all right, so I encounter an orc. So let's see where the orc stats. So you look for the orc stats instead of just making them up real quick on the fly. If you maybe just use an analog journal, so there's more danger of getting distracted, of getting out of the game flow, not because your thoughts wander off, but because you feel this need to constantly look for stuff, insert stuff into your document and making it nice. But for me, the biggest the biggest caveat against using this is, for me, it does not feel like gaming. Because I don't know what your day job is, but my day job involves sitting in front of a computer a lot and staring at a screen. So when I play my solo game, I don't want to stare at another computer screen. I don't want to type. I purposely want to get away from these digital things. Of course, I do use a tablet every once in a while to show images. If you see me playing on the channel, to basically set the scene or set a certain atmosphere, but this is basically it. For me, this does not feel like gaming, because gaming for me also is a very haptical experience. I want to have this pen and paper tabletop feeling that I also get from playing in a group. So I want to use a pen and want to use an eraser to erase hit points, and I want to roll real dice, and I want to feel the ink on the paper and the sensation of actually writing stuff down. So gaming for me is a haptical experience as much as it is a creative exercise. And I don't get what I'm looking for in this regard by using a computer. And like I said, I've tried all these methods. I've tried them all, and I found my method. So this is not for me, but it is a perfectly legit way of also recording a session. So, and this takes us to the last method, and this is of course recording your sessions on camera, either for yourself or for an audience. So what are the pros? Of course, it is a very immersive experience, because usually it involves verbal interaction, especially if you record your sessions like I do with the intent of sharing them online. Doesn't matter if it's like a YouTube channel or maybe a blog or whatever. So then it is a very haptical experience for me, because usually if I record something, I also want to have something to look at. So I'm using miniatures, I'm using pawns, I'm using tiles. I get all the toys out, the bells and whistles, as you would say, that I usually don't get out when I just play privately for myself using my trusty journal. And then, of course, it also keeps me focused and engaged with the game and the game world. And this, in my opinion, comes the closest to recreating the actual gameplay experience you would have playing classic with a group, a tabletop game with a group. So, but what are the downsides? Of course, you need a dedicated space for that. Unless you want to get like set it all up and then get rid of it all, that would be very time consuming. So also for me, quick setup times are essential when playing solo. So here, when I record videos, I have my dedicated gaming den. I have my dedicated gaming space that I don't need to clean up afterwards, that I don't need to set up. I got it all set up, so I can basically just press record. But if you don't have this, it can be very demanding and time consuming to set it all up. Also, if you record for an audience, it is pretty demanding to keep it engaged, and you talk for the entire time. So it can actually be exhausting, and depending on how elaborate you want to have it, depending on what you're doing it for, like for a channel, you want to produce like a show like on Me, Myself and Die. It is also very time consuming afterwards, when you go through the editing process, cut stuff out, etc., etc. So as you know, I don't do this. I don't do any editing whatsoever. So this is very low production quality. I just press the record button, I play, and like I said, or like I used to say, you get the ugly truth of solo gaming on my channel. So with all the pauses, the distractions, the looking for miniatures, it's all in there, because I don't have this. I don't want to produce a perfect show. I just want to play, and yeah, I want to share my actual plays because I like interacting with the community and being part of this solo RPG YouTube community. But my goal is not to create the perfect YouTube experience for the viewer. Sorry to say that. So I don't spend a lot of time editing my videos. I don't spend any time editing videos. I don't do soundtracks. I don't do what other people do, and there are great channels out there that go through a lot of effort to create a very visually appealing experience. So if this is your goal, it takes a long time. For me, this is not what I'm after. I'm after this recreating this tabletop experience and just giving you an authentic view of how I solo game. So this is not a factor, but the other things it is demanding. You need a dedicated gaming space, setup time, of course, still apply. But as you know, next to playing with a journal privately, this is now my preferred method of gaming, recording it to share it with you guys on YouTube. So yeah, that brings me to the end of the video. So I just want to give you a quick short summary. So in my opinion, some form of documenting a solo RPG or solo gaming is necessary because it gives your world consistency, it gives your actions meaning, it solidifies your actions in the game world, and it gives them permanency. The method you choose depends on, of course, the circumstances you are in. So can you set aside dedicated time blocks for gaming? Do you travel a lot? Do you plan on traveling or gaming on the go? Do you have a dedicated gaming space where you can just leave your stuff set up? Are you gaming just for you, or are you planning to share it either on YouTube or on a blog with actual play reports or whatever? So these are all things to consider if you're looking for the right method for you to document a session. Every method has their pros and cons. There's not the one perfect method for everyone. And don't be discouraged if you don't find the right method for you right away. You don't have to stick with one method. Try them all out. Find out what works for you. Find your own way, your own method, maybe even combining methods like I said, voice recorder with a journal maybe, or you use a laptop but analog dice, whatever is right for you. There is no right or wrong, and the only person you have to please is yourself. So find out what works for you. Don't get discouraged. And yeah, that's basically it. So as always, thank you for watching this Solo Spelunking Table Talk video. If you have made it this far, maybe there's something you got out of it. Maybe there's something you want to try out in the future. And as always, I thank you for watching. Stay safe and stay healthy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.